Hey everybody, welcome to Always Bored, Never Boring. I previously said that in the run up to Halloween, I wanted to try to add some more horror themed videos to the channel. Well, it just so happens that at the PulseCon 2021 event that happened on Saturday the 23rd of October, Hasbro dropped the news that they were working on more expansions for their reboot of the classic dungeon crawler HeroQuest, which was launched last year through their HasLab crowdfunding platform. The expansion they teased was the Barbarian Quest Pack, otherwise known as the Frozen Horror, and honestly, the word horror in the title is all the excuse I need to talk some more about HeroQuest. So, in this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about what the Frozen Horror was, what it might be, and how that might impact people who did and didn't back Hasbro's HeroQuest. It's sort of a walk down memory lane while wildly speculating about the future. First of all, the Frozen Horror was one of two expansions that never got a European release, the second being the Elf Quest Pack, The Mage of the Mirror. These two expansions focused on individual heroes, and there are plenty of rumours and stories to indicate the plan was to have expansions for the Wizard and the Dwarf too. In fact, it could be argued that Wizards of Morcar is the Wizard Quest Pack, as it does grant some new options for the heroic wizard, as well as introducing a host of evil wizards for him to battle. However, Wizards of Morcar was only available in Europe, where putting magic at Morcar's fingertips was something of a novelty. Maybe one day Hasbro will create a Wizards of Zargon. That would be something. Anyway, the Frozen Horror was the Barbarian themed pack, and saw the brave Barbarian returning to the Northlands to undergo 3 challenges to determine his, or indeed her, worth, before setting out with the other heroes for a final confrontation with the titular baddie. In short, you were getting a brand new 10-part campaign, along with new treasures, spells, artifacts and enemies. As with the Elf Quest Pack, the first 3 missions in the Frozen Horror campaign were solo missions. That's not to say you could play the missions on your own, there was no AI for the monsters, it just meant the missions were intended for a single hero, the Barbarian, going head to head with the Zargon player who would still be in control of the dungeon denizens. These solo missions had 2 purposes. First, they could be used to fast track a Barbarian if you had previously only been using the Wizard, Elf and Dwarf in your campaign, but why on earth would you be doing that? More importantly, the missions provided an opportunity to play HeroQuest as a straight 2-player game without one player having to take on the role of several heroes. The final 7 missions in the campaign appear to be more of what players should have come to expect from HeroQuest. There were some tile overlays to introduce some icy hazardous terrain like chasms and freezing rivers. If you played any HeroQuest expansion, you know the sort of thing. Personally, being from the UK, I have no experience of playing the Frozen Horror, so I really have no idea what the campaign and those solo missions were like. But looking through the adventure book, they look like tough missions, and I have heard they could be quite brutal, especially because of the new monsters. More on those in a bit. So, in terms of Hasbro's new version of the expansion, can we expect to see the same missions? Probably. Possibly. Hasbro haven't really changed the core rules for HeroQuest, so they can probably port the expansion missions as is into the new edition. They might tweak a few things for balance, but I would expect them to be largely the same. I also don't see why they wouldn't include the solo missions. In fact, they might be true solo missions this time, as they are working on a companion app that will take on the role of Zargon. It could be the first official one-player, one-hero HeroQuest experience. Another interesting element with this expansion is that it included a new hero miniature, a female barbarian. Similarly, the Elf expansion had a female elf miniature. These alt-gender heroes worked in exactly the same way as their male counterparts from the base game, and it still wasn't possible to have a party with 2 barbarians or 2 elves. It was just an opportunity to add female variants, so people had a choice in how they wanted to be represented on the board. Will the new Frozen Horror expansion also have an alt-gender hero? I don't see why not. During the crowdfunding campaign, Hasbro added alt-gender heroes for the 4 main characters as a bonus for backing. People who buy the game at retail won't get those alt-gender heroes, so it makes sense to drop them into expansions. It would be a good way to add those variants for people who didn't back, while backers get the benefit of having those variants much earlier, and without needing to buy expansions if they don't want them. The Barbarian wasn't the only new miniature in the expansion either. I couldn't find out who sculpted the new miniatures, but, with a few exceptions that I'll get into in a moment, I get the impression they weren't sculpted by Citadel like the core miniatures were. They have a slightly chunkier style that reminds me more of the miniatures from Dungeons & Dragons the fantasy adventure board game. First up is the big bad himself, the Frozen Horror. This is an interesting miniature because he's a bulky lad sprawling across a double wide base, and there are some suitably vague rules in the quest book for dealing with that. Even Joe's new dragon only takes up a single space on the board. The horror is a spellcaster, so you get some cool new ice themed spells. See what I did there? And he has access to some of the existing chaos spells. You also get 3 gremlins. Instead of attacking, they can steal items and then run away. There are 2 yetis. If they hit you, they start hugging you to death, and the only escape is for another hero to kill them. Then there are 2 polar war bears that get to make 2 attacks per turn. These are absolutely the best miniatures, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Hasbro do with them. Additionally, this expansion came with 6 henchmen with 12 interchangeable weapons. HeroQuest fans will recognise these miniatures from a number of places. They were used as the Black Guards of the Dark Company in HeroQuest Advanced Quest, which was also called HeroQuest Master Edition in some territories. They also appeared in the UK expansion Wizards of Morcar, where they could be hired by the heroes to assist on their quests. In the Frozen Horror, they can turn up as villains, but you can also hire them to help the heroes. The interchangeable weapons let you make henchmen with double-handed swords, swords and shields, crossbows or halberds. Now of course, the Frozen Horror was never released in the UK, and even in the US the original has become quite a valuable coveted expansion. There will be some people like me who have an old version of HeroQuest, and they might be thinking they could just buy this new edition of the Frozen Horror to use with what they already have. But there are some issues with that. The biggest issue is for UK gamers. The rules for HeroQuest in the UK are significantly different to the US rules. In the UK, for example, all the monsters pretty much have 1 hit point, and Morcar, Zargon, doesn't have access to any spells. As the new edition of the Frozen Horror will be using the US rules, it isn't going to be a case of opening the box and playing the contents with your UK set. The other issue is that for the new edition, Hasbro have scaled things up a bit. Miniatures are a little bigger, and they have also said the board is going to be bigger to better fit the miniature bases. That means any tile overlays for traps, icy rivers, deadly ice and new rooms will be too big to fit on an original HeroQuest board. I'm sure once backers start to receive their new edition of the game, we will see some comparison videos on YouTube and Instagram to verify exactly how out of scale the new tiles are. Overall, I would say this isn't really like fitting a square peg in a round hole. It's more a case of trying to fit a round peg in a round hole that's just a little bit too small. But honestly, the more I talk, the more I will wander into the icy wilderness of speculation, so I'm probably going to set up a base camp here and put the kettle on. As a final thought, for now at least, I think I should say it's really exciting to see Hasbro revisiting classic expansions. I think it bodes well for the future of the game. Personally, I dearly hope the new edition of HeroQuest has a long life ahead of it, with a new generation of young gamers getting to experience all the excitement the oldies like me once experienced. This game has been out in the cold too long, and reviving it just to see development drop off and for the new product line to freeze up would be the greatest horror of all. Thank you so much for watching. If you've enjoyed the video, please consider pressing the like button. If you really enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing if you don't already do so, and hopefully I will see you all again very soon. Bye bye everyone. Bye bye.